Let's dive into these clips that we have to share from the Carthon press conference. Let's start with the idea of trading Vrabel, because we've been talking for a long time on this show about if they trade him, what compensation could they get? They should trade him. They shouldn't fire him. They fired him. What does this all mean? We're going to discuss the details of it in a minute, but first let's let Rand Carthon explain their thought process as to what exactly went into deciding to fire Vrabel instead of exploring a trade.
I don't know the nature of his conversations with Miss Amy about, him being traded. I do understand the question about a trade. It's just not as simple and cut and dry. And you look over the history of coaches being traded, it's just not a lot in recent times. And when you say recent times, I know Sean Payton was just traded for, but he was out, and New Orleans had a coach in place. But there's also league mandates and rules that you have to follow, before you can execute a trade. And, you have the partner, if you will, would have to go through an exhaustive process and meet the Rooney rules and all those qualifications. And before we could even start interviewing, we have to have an opening. And so it just prolongs our ability to get the next and best head coach in here.
So I've got to put my hand up a little bit, although really all of us do. There are elements to this idea of trading a coach that really are not well known until kind of today, at least in this media market. I don't recall anybody, big or small, talking about these things. Paul Kuharsky was the first to really start to talk about it today around noon. Some things that I think he was fed by the team, some sources he has, their explanation along those same lines of why they didn't do it. But just to elaborate on what Carthon said there, the part that was too overlooked in the lead up to this is that a trade would have probably set the Titans behind the 8 ball a little bit timeline wise on the coaching search, because the way that the rules work, there are some stipulations that have to be met. They would have had to wait until after the divisional round of the playoffs to deal him, apparently, and then complied with the Rooney rule, which means they would have had to have in-person interviews with at least 2 minority candidates for the job. And by then, the top candidates may very well have been gone. You would have been near or at the end of the line for these top candidates if you were just joining the coaching search then. That being said, and there's one more really important element here. This part I did not know at all until today, and it does change things a little bit. Trading a coach is not like trading a player. Trading their contract is different than trading a player's contract. Apparently, the coach has to be in agreement. You can't, against a coach's will, trade them to another team. They have to. I don't know why exactly. Maybe we'll learn more about this. And maybe I'm dumb and I'm just missing it. But there are things about. Okay, and apparently Stillman was talking about trade complexities last week. Okay, well I don't frequent Stillman's radio program, if you can't tell. I have thoughts on all of that. Here's the basic thought on that. If we're gonna bring up Stillman, he's victory lapping today. He was right. Good for him. I won't dive too deep into this, JT, but you know how we often talk about how with GMs and head coaches and owners, there's a way to have bad process and still get good results. Like perhaps if, I don't know, Amy Adams-Strunk had gotten emotional during the Eagles game last year, and that's what ultimately led her to fire John Robinson in season. I think we've argued on the show before that is bad process. That is being reactionary and firing somebody off of a stupid reason. But it's a good result because he deserved to be fired. He needed to not have that job any longer. So you can back your way into good results without having good process. That's talked about with owners and GMs and head coaches all the time. It applies to broadcast and journalism too. It really does. And there are some folks who have a throw whatever at the wall, constantly see what sticks, and then an approach of look at how genius I too can throw wild hot takes at the wall over and over every single day. I'm eventually going to be right too. That's how it works. But that doesn't necessarily I don't like to deal in conspiracies and wild, unrealistic scenarios. That's just the way that I operate. Some others choose not to, and that's successful for them. And I'm glad, I've never once, in fact, I've always said that Jared Stillman's very good at what he does. I just don't respect or appreciate what exactly he does and the way that he does it. So there's that. But congrats on being right. He did. He seemed to have nailed this story, and a crazy thing happened and he nailed it. So well done. Okay. So back to back to what we heard from where even was I? Trading Vrabel.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I still think that it was the correct move to try to trade him. I really do. Back to what we heard earlier from Diana Rossini, where they basically said the reason we didn't trade him is because it sounded too hard and difficult. Like, you needed to try. I think you needed to hit the phones and try. I don't know. Like, there's more to this. Maybe I'm going to find out in the coming days. There's more to this that made it really impossible. But are we sure you couldn't put out there publicly, hey, Mike Vrabel is available via trade? We can't trade him yet necessarily, but we're fielding offers. We'd like to see who's interested. And if that's the case, then you have that out there, and potential head coaching candidates that are looking for the best possible situation for them, guys that are, highly touted, are going to have a lot of options and want the best option for them. Maybe they see that and say, oh, wow, okay, Tennessee's going to have an opening. I'm going to wait to join with any team to accept a job until I know that I can't get. Maybe that's the one that they want the most. And you know what I mean? Like that's not unreasonable to me, but I don't know if there's rules that would have prevented that. But if they could have done that, JT, is it crazy for me to say that they should have tried that first?
Well, the biggest thing, right, is that it really comes down to the Rooney Rule. And that's where you have to look at it from the Patriots perspective. Sure, they could trade for Mike Vrabel. They could know all along that they want Mike Vrabel and want to trade. They still have to wait these 2 weeks and do 2 in-person interviews with 2 outside diversity possible candidates before they could even consider giving that Mike Vrabel. So I do get why they really said it wasn't worth our time, because I mean, not to say that Amy Adams Strunk was reactionary, but I mean, you see this Washington Commanders team already putting together a hiring group, and they are already sending out requests. You have the Carolina Panthers starting to move on that, and a bunch of these other teams as well. So yeah, I see why that why it could be enticing for a couple of candidates to wait. It also is a major risk for the Titans, because if you truly believe that your guy is out there, you want to be first to him, just like all these other teams.
We can move on to the next clip after I say this last bit of piece on it. My reaction to this is, if you're not going to try at all the trade route, if you're just going to say that it's not tenable, like that sort of signals to me, maybe Amy Adams Strunk or the Titans brass or whoever has a specific guy or guys in mind, and they think it's super, super important for them to get near the front of the line of head coaching, head coaching searching teams. If that's the case, cool, fine. And maybe that means they get their guy and they get the best guy in the market or whatever it is. But you better have a plan to get one of the top guys and not steal. Because if you do all of this and then at the end of the coaching search, it feels like, or physically, like literally based on the timeline of who's hired when, you're literally at the bottom of the heap. You're at the end of the line. That's no good, man. Like that doesn't work.
And that was kind of a point, right? Like, let's say that if you did indeed trade Mike Vrabel, okay, let's say you get a future first and a 3rd round pick this year. Like, let's say that that's what happened, right? Would you be content with having to settle for maybe like
your 3rd, 4th option,
like an Art Smith or something like that? Because it's just like these type of guys that
Josh McDaniels
left over. Yeah, Josh McDaniels, someone like that. Would you?
Brandon Staley's out there, Cliff Kingsbury out there. Come on,
for the picks, right? Like, there's a bunch of young, talented, offensive-minded guys out there that I think, if we can read through the lines here, that I think the Titans and this ownership group are wanting to move towards that. And I think the way to do it, you got to just kind of bite the bullet, and you have to get there in line with the Commanders and the Panthers and the rest of them.